After 7 years of living in Canada, I finally get the chance to visit Vancouver. Ah! It was the first time I was traveling with my man by plane. He wanted a vacation and the category was within Canada. It was early in the morning and I already lost a nail, but we definitely survived. It was only a 5 hour flight, thank God. Just a mini lore drop, but I used to live in Saskatchewan when I first arrived in Canada, and I've always thought that I wanted to live in Vancouver, but I ended up in Montreal, so this is gonna be a first, and I'm really excited to revisit these memories. Come join us. Okay, so first things first, we lodged at this location. In our research, this was the cheapest one that met our criteria, so we were really relieved to know that it was real and it was way better than what we could have asked for. We wasted no time and immediately went to our first stop after checking in, which was Queen Elizabeth Park. We tried to keep our research short and sweet so that we would not get spoiled, but the view still had us gagged. It was slightly similar to Montreal Park, but Queen Elizabeth wins this one. On top of Queen Elizabeth Park, you would find Floatel Conservatory. This place was not just a garden, it was home to a ton of rescue birds, such as these parrots, and some of these birds have outlived their previous owners, and some of them are over 40 years old. There were also interesting plants in here. Look at her. She looks like the Pokemon Victory Bell. I don't think I've ever seen a cluster of fly traps. That was really cool. Oh, and this little emoji spotted. Alright, I'll have to show you my favorite bird, Valentine. Valentine was adorable. Like, he was just bobbing his head and dancing when I mentioned his name. Like, ah, how cute is that? Valentine, I miss you. We get one last look at Queen Elizabeth before we move to the garden. So we go to VanDusen Botanical Park. This garden was phenomenal. It was nothing short of magic. I've never seen so much lotus in my life. I didn't even know they came in pink and white. Beyond the lotuses, they definitely had a lot to offer in here, from art to a maze to a ton of exotic plants. And a bunch of the plants were native to Asia, so that was truly impressive to witness. We spent about 4 hours in the garden and we weren't even able to cover the whole park. There were a bunch of areas that were under renovation and there was a bunch of photo shoots and wedding happening at the same time. We were really surprised by everything we saw here. Okay, but have you ever seen a bunch of blue flowers all together? Pause. Blue flowers are truly gorgeous. They remind me of forget-me-nots or when I first saw them in children's books. I also think it's incredible to witness indigenous art and history through totem poles. They look so cool. Honestly, I was scared of the itinerary having two parks, especially after Queen Elizabeth, but VanDusen is not to miss. We wrapped up our day one with dinner with friends. When I used to live in Saskatchewan, most of my social life was online, so I made a bunch of friends in Valorant that I got to meet for the first time in 5 years. I just love how my man gets to share this experience with me. And that was day one. For our second day, we planned it all around North Vancouver. And we started our morning with an Uber to Grouse Mountain. Okay, in my research, you could have taken a bus to get there, but we didn't really wake up early for that. But taking the Uber was chill, and before you know it, we were on a gondola going up. Literally gagged by my fear of heights. It also did not occur to me that it would be really cold in here. I wish I had a puffer jacket, but who would have thought of bringing that in a summer day, right? Some of those participants definitely thought so. We didn't even know there was gonna be a race. Needless to say, this morning was full of surprises, especially this view. I feel like I'm in a book scene of some novel that I read when I was in 6th grade. It could be Nicholas Sparks. Which feels like a bitter reminder that I haven't read novels in a while. I'm so brain rot and I'm not sure if I can even read a novel anymore. Yeah, there was ice in the summer. We were definitely underdressed, but c'est la vie. There was also this lumberjack show, which almost felt like a mini concert. It was so entertaining. Honestly, if I didn't know a thing about Canada, this would be the stereotype in my head about a Canadian life. We also signed up for this rope course that looked fairly easy in the poster. The kids in front of me definitely made it look like you didn't need to sweat to do this. But as an adult, I genuinely have no excuses. Details of my incompetence shouldn't be relevant here. Don't get me wrong, I still had fun doing the first three courses until I realized my hands were red and needed a break. I just felt a little bad that I couldn't enjoy the whole thing, considering this row course costed about 100 per person, or maybe 100 for both. But it was still enjoyable seeing my man nail the rest of the courses, especially the harder parts. Good for him. It was like a McDonald's playground on steroids, literally an adult's dream, except it's entwined in nature, which makes it a lot more badass. And just like that, 6 hours in Grouse went by in a whim. I never really realized how ignorant I was with the size of grizzly bears until I saw them in the flesh. They literally were humongous. I was gagged because in my head, they are these small little teddy bears, you know? I finally understand why people would be scared of them. And after getting to the peak of Grouse, a man had to flex, so be nice to him. Oh my god, and just when I thought the gondola rides were over, I had to ride an open one before like riding the last one. And just like that, a 30-minute Uber ride took us from Grouse to Lynn Canyon. I was concerned of how feasible traveling from Grouse to Lynn Canyon would have been, considering we don't have a car. But it wasn't as bad as we thought, and we were so happy to have been here. It was a breath of fresh air, and it was free. I was so happy to have it in my system. The views in here reminded me of the Philippines, especially this rocks, and reminded me of my grandma's little province where we called these little rivers Carayan in her language, which meant river. These green turquoise waters also looked like home and they were really cold. Look at my man, he was so brave. The cold never bothered him. There was also a bunch of people here, but I took the best angle so that it looked like it was just the two of us. I already got to change into a bikini underneath my hiking clothes, so it was just sad that I was a chicken when it comes to the cold. I mean, I was an island girly, but I guess it's just part of Canadian nature. Would you look at that? Doesn't that make you think how the world exists? Like the earth exists without us? And yeah, we choose to have like desk jobs and homework. It's like, that's crazy. Such is life. We actually got lost on our way out. We lost GPS and our Google Maps was messing up with where to go. But luckily, there were people in there that were jogging, and there was this lady whom I asked for directions, and she offered to drive us to the nearest bus stop. So, my heart, thank you, Angel. Just like Mother Kaliuchi said. I'm really grateful for an abundant day. Thank you, Vancouver. I envy the people who live here. Okay, I know it's our last day, and it definitely felt so fleeting. It's going to be a me and my man kind of day. I get to see my girlies in the night as well. Before we reached our first stop, we definitely stopped by this Japanese store. It was close to the photo booth we wanted to go to, which was in this place called Slice. Yep, it's a vintage photo booth from the 70s or 80s, and it was definitely a machine to work with. On the contrary, there was also a MacBook in there, which definitely had fun photo booths that my boyfriend Loki enjoyed until he got sick of me. We also got the chance to see this view. It was this pretty park. It was so smelly. Then we headed to Gastown, saw the iconic clock, and then we stumbled upon this revolving photo booth by the old spaghetti factory. All you had to do was line up, and that was so cute. We definitely felt iconic here. We were lucky to be here on such a gorgeous day. I couldn't stop admiring the views of the city. Okay, the main plot of the day was biking at Stanley Park, but we ended up renting some scooters, which was actually pretty fun. It was easy, and I genuinely love this place. This has to be my favorite part of the whole Vancouver travel. It's been about 7 years for me since I last smelled ocean water, like salt water. Throughout biking the whole park, my heart was fluttering and I was definitely enjoying the sodium chloride on my nose. Before coming to Canada, I did my research on what people do here, and a lot of the videos that I saw were people biking in Stanley Park, that I genuinely had this place in my dream. So to be able to live this in the flesh was just really touching. Like my heart, girl, my heart. On our way back to get ready for the night, it was so gorgeous to see the view of the beach. I was genuinely in disbelief. Like, this low-key looks like what 12-year-old me would have seen in Tumblr with a caption of LA. So I could not believe this is not LA. Like, what do you mean it's not Venice Beach? Anyway, as a Filipino girly, I definitely grew up with coconut trees, and I only saw palm trees on those Tumblr photos. So seeing them live was like telling the little girl in me that Santa is real. We also had Persian ice cream to beat the scorching heat. We wrap up our final day with a little kiki with the girls. I haven't seen them since I left the Philippines. Aren't they so gorgeous? This one's Nadine and Lois. Thanks for seeing me, girls. I know, that was so abrupt. We have to go. We had 5 hours before our flight when we woke up, so I convinced my man that going to the beach was the best way to spend our last hours, and he finally agreed. Thankfully, it was an easy commute to get there. Just when we thought everything was going well, our flight actually got cancelled. We were still rebooked to a flight that was 11 hours later, but considering that they only offered $30 airport food voucher was just pretty infuriating. We had no itinerary, we had no place to stay, we had heavy bags that we had to carry throughout the day. When I called them, Air Canada by the way, they were so condescending and so insensitive to the anxiety I was facing. We had jobs to go back to. Anyway, after accepting that we couldn't do much about it, we decided to move on and just explore the day. With our heavy bags, we went to the nearest park and lodged our stuff in there. It was just really nice that it was a gorgeous day. My man wanted to explore and I wanted to rest, and we swapped turns later on so that I could explore. I really appreciate how we got along and did our own things. I just love how it was very easygoing with him. It was a long day and my phone got dirty, blurry, but I wasn't complaining because it definitely looked super whimsical in these photos and videos. I started feeling giddy, like I could imagine a Leve song playing in the background. And just like that, our whirlwind of a vacation is bound to wrap to an end. Yo, when I was a kid, I used to hate the view of sunsets because they always reminded me that the day was over. I mean, as I'm editing this, the sun is setting earlier, and in Canada, the sun sets later in the summer. So yeah, life is fleeting. Enjoy it while it lasts, and that's a wrap. And my man, thank you to my man. Alright, thank you so much for watching. It took me about a month to edit this. If you enjoyed, please tell me what you'd like to see in my next videos. I love you. Thank you. Next.